Okay guys, and we're back. So in that short little intermission, all I did was I straightened up a few of the wires, and we went ahead and put in the SATA cables. Alright, so these are the SATA cables that were actually provided by ASUS with the motherboard. They're a 6 gig per second SATA cable. Now, like I said before, a SATA cable is a SATA cable. I've tested it myself, and even ones that don't specifically say, like on these it says ASUS SATA 6 gig per second 1309. I don't know what that means. I do know that the 6 gig per second, I know what that part is and everything, but oops, I'm kicking the camera. But even with these older ones, and a couple of these are, you know, they're pretty old. They're probably 4 or 5 years old, and they tend to work just fine. They still do the 6 gig per second. Didn't really ever have any problems with them. I even set those up in a RAID configuration, a RAID 0, and it worked perfectly fine. Now, some of the cables, like if you look at these two here, okay, so they're just straight up. There's no 90-degree angle. Now on some of them, like, and I'm not actually going to open up the package, but I don't know, I think you can see this one right here. Okay, this one actually has a 90-degree angle, which works out nicely for like your for some of your drive connections. So like this one right here, all right, makes a nice 90-degree angle, and it comes straight down. Now I had to put a straight one in up here for my hot swap bay because there's not enough clearance between here and the actual optical drive. So it came straight out, and then it's coming down. All right, and then I went ahead and I connected up my stuff. One of the nice things that I wanted to show you is actually right down here at the very bottom. Okay, so down here at the bottom, basically what there is a small connector that, here's another example. Okay, so like you have a little piece like this. And the nice part about it is it's actually labeled. Now I'm sure you probably won't be able to see this on the video, but it says like NC ground P2 positive, P2 negative, plus 5 volt. What this is a USB connector. So if your case actually has the wires that are all just separated for USB, like my little server that I have down over here, okay, the USB connectors on the front actually are just wires. Okay, they're not all put together in a nice little peg like this where you can just stick it in a motherboard. This is actually kind of nice because what this does is this allows you to stick all those on there, because they'll be marked like, you know, whatever, like the positive 5 volt, the ground, whatever. All right, so you can stick all those on there and then stick that on the motherboard, just like this part right down here. Now if I can, I'll try and show you. So if you guys can see that, I don't know, let me see if I can zoom in on that a little bit. Whoa! As I start kicking things around a little ways. Alright, so may actually have to tilt you up just a little bit. There we go. Alright, so this part right here, guys, this is actually nice because this, you see how my wires are all individual? They just plug onto this. It's got everything all labeled out for you, and all you got to do from that point is just take this and actually place it, if I can make it work, right onto the board. Alright, and that's all that there is to it. So that's all you really got to worry about. So let's see if we can get this back up here so you can see a little bit of me, maybe. So anyway, so that's that part. All right, and then they just connect onto the board right here. All right, so we've got our SATA connection for the optical drive, for the hot swap bay, and then for our hard drive over here, which comes around through the back. And I've tried to make this, what am I on top of here? I've tried to make this as clean as possible so that there's a maximum amount of airflow, because what happens is right here there's actually a fan. And what that fan does is it blows in through the chassis here, all right, across the hard drive, so it keeps the hard drive nice and cool, and then it blows in. the fan up on top, which you can't really see, but this guy right up there, all right, what he does is he's an exhaust fan. So you have an intake fan here, all right, you have an exhaust fan here, and then for our water block, which is going to sit right here, okay, this guy, it's an exhaust fan as well. So you have intake, exhaust, exhaust, all right. So the one on the side is actually going to be an intake fan as well. It's directed down towards the motherboard. And the reason that you want that is because these parts right here, which I'm not really actually seeing, but this stuff right here, okay, these heat sinks and everything, they're going to get warm, like really warm. And what we don't want to end up happening is we don't want those to get so hot that basically it'll shut the system down. If they get too hot, it just says nope, it's not working, and you'll either get the blue screen of death or the system will just outright say we're too hot, we're shutting down. Okay, now that's one of the things that you have to take into consideration. The other thing you have to take into consideration is the fact that we're going to be putting in 2 of these monsters. Okay, so we've got one that's going to go right here, and we've got one that's going to go right here. Now I'm skipping over this one because in the manual, which this thing, oh my gosh, is absolutely ginormous, okay? But it goes in depth in all kinds of different things. So your BIOS settings, if you want to set up a RAID configuration. But the nice part, and what I was using is actually right here. This is the schematic for the motherboard, and it basically tells you your SATA numbering system. So you have SATA 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then this one says SATA E1 and E2. Now I don't know if that means like extended or what, but they're all 6 gig per second. So with some motherboards, I'm trying to think, I can't remember whether or not this one, 6 gig, 6 gig, 6 gig, 6 gig. No, even on this motherboard, okay, all 6 of them were actually 6 gig per second. So it didn't make any difference which one you connected to, it was going to be the same speed. There are some motherboards that, like these two, okay, like possibly this one would be 3 gig per second. And then these 4 down here would be 6 gig per second. So depending on your motherboard manufacturer and stuff like that, some of these can actually be faster or slower. So if you're going to be using like a solid state hard drive, that's very important to know. You need to know which ones are your fastest SATA connections, because that's the one that you want to hook a hard drive to. Now in this current build that I'm actually doing with this here, I'm not using a SATA drive, okay? I'm using a traditional spindle drive. So there's actually discs in here and they spin. It does spin at 7200 RPM. It's a SATA 3 hard drive, so it does utilize the 6 gig per second transfer rate. Now, even though it's a 6 gig per second transfer rate, it's a SATA 3 drive, it's not going to be as fast as a solid state. If I was to drop a solid state in here, beast mode. But I'm not at that point just yet. Alright, so the next thing that I want to do, that I want to show you guys, is before I put these beast graphics cards in here, what I want to do is I want to put the memory in. So I'm going to try and get this situated so you guys can see what I'm doing here as far as the memory goes. Now, our memory is going to fit right here in this slot. Alright, so what we need to do is, first off, we need to get our memory DIMMs. Alright, so now this is DDR3. There's a big difference between DDR, DDR2, and DDR3. And the main part is this slot right there. Okay, I don't know if you'll be able to see it or not, but see the little slot? Okay. That slot is very specific. They build them so that they only fit the DIMM that they're designed for. So a DDR2 memory will not work in DDR3 DIMMs. And same vice versa. Okay, so you have to know exactly which one you're getting. So with these, they just fit right down in. You should, yep. Alright, and then you just go until you hear that good click. Alright, now because I have 4 of them, we're just going to put all 4 of these in. If you are only using 1 or 2, I was looking through the manual and there is a designated pattern. So if you're only using 1, it would go in one specific place. If you're using 2, then 1 would go here, 1 would go here. If you're using 3, then you do 1, 2, and then 3. And because I'm using all 4, you just fill up the whole slot setup. So we'll get these put in there, because the reason I want to do this is because, remember I was telling you guys, you might have to do something once or twice until you get the actual process complete. And the reason that I'm doing this here is because once I get these graphics cards in, there's no way I'm going to be able to reach these. And what I want to do is I want to get my little ballistics fan put back on there. Alright, so with this, what this is going to allow me to do is basically, you know, it's going to give me enough room to, oh, I guess I have that side all tightened up. This is going to give me enough room to actually install this, get this put in place, and be able to tighten it down where it belongs before we put the graphics card in. Alright, so this is actually going to be kind of nice, and I'm trying to think, do I have that spaced? Yeah, I got that spaced right. So we're just going to tighten this up, and this basically just sits on there. More or less, it just kind of looks pretty. Now it does tend to cool the RAM off a little bit. It's nice to have those fans there blowing on that RAM, so that part is actually pretty nice. Now what we're going to do is push that out of the way a little bit, because there is this, oh my gosh, there's so many different places. There's a fan connection here, CPU fan 1, CPU optional fan, so you can plug in an optional fan, a chassis fan 3. There's another another fan plug in here, and that they're all 4-pin fan connections. So the motherboard can actually control the speed of the fans. Now this little ballistics fan or whatever is only a 3-pin connection, so it just has 1 speed. It turns on, that's it. Okay, you don't get to control the speed on that one. But what we're going to do is we're actually going to set that up on chassis fan 3. And you guys will notice that, I know it's kind of hard to see, but there's little fins that kind of run along those edges. Those have to fit on that same spot as your pin connections. So when you put these on here, you need to make sure that you put those in the correct place. Otherwise, they won't turn on. Alright. It'll be like, yeah, thanks for playing, but nope, not happening. So we got that in place. That's good to go. Alright, so now we have our memory installed. We have our fan for our memory, so that part's good to go. I think before we actually go and put the GPUs in, we're actually going to install our water cooling, and this is where we're going to actually use our Antec thermal compound. Now, thermal compound is necessary. Okay, it's not an option. Okay, especially if you're going to be overclocking, which I will be overclocking this board, and I will try and get the results put up. But this has been my experience in all the years I've been working on computers. You can run a CPU without a fan for about 30 seconds. Okay, most of the time you get past the BIOS screen, it'll start to load Windows, and then it'll shut off because the CPU got too hot. All right. And it shuts itself down because it has a thermal overload protection in it, which is fantastic. You can run a CPU with just a block, basically a cooling block put on top of it. It'll run for maybe a minute, maybe 2 minutes before it shuts off. You can do the same thing with a fan on top of it, and it might run as long as it's not really doing anything, depending. Okay, it depends on the processor, a lot of different things. But the thermal paste is the only thing that's going to help you, especially if you're running a game rig. You have to have it. There's no ifs, there's no ands. You got to have it, and you need to have a good quality. I've used the Antec. It's always worked for me. I have not really had any problems with it, so I'm going to continue to use that. Now, what we're going to do is, come Can we see? Yeah, we can kind of see what's going on here, I think. I don't know, it might be buried. But it's basically a little squirter, and we're going to throw down about a dime size puddle. Alright, now I call it a puddle. Some people may say, Manny, that's too much, it's not enough. You know what, I've been doing it long enough to where this is as much as I need. I've put them together, I've taken them apart. You know, now what we need to do is we need to spread this around. And I will show you this here in just a second, guys. As soon as I get this spread around on the processor, I'll tip this up so that you can see my attempt at trying to make an even coating. Now, some people will say it's imperative that you make it as even as possible. If you are doing extreme gaming like the Major League Gaming, that I guess apparently is now an official sport, and you were going to do something crazy like LN2 cooling or something like that, and LN2 is just liquid nitrogen, guys. It's a crazy setup, but you're basically using liquid nitrogen to cool down the processor, and that is some seriously intense stuff there. That is for enthusiasts, and usually the only reason that they're doing something like that, because it's so expensive, is because they're simply just trying to break benchmarks. They're trying to make world records. That's really all it's for. Okay, nobody that I know of would set a motherboard out on a table and put this huge funnel on there so that they can pour in LN2 cooling to play Battlefield or something like that. I mean, there's no point. Alright, so enough of that. I'm off my horse. So what I did is I cleaned up the underside of our water block here, which is nice because it's copper, and if you guys don't know that much about copper, copper is an excellent conductor of heat. A most excellent conductor of heat. So what we're going to do is we're just going to set that right down in place here as best we can. We'll get our locks put on there. And guys, don't worry too much if it's moving around while you're trying to put the water block on there. It's fine. It's okay. It's not going to hurt anything. Now what you want to do is you want to tighten these up fairly tight. Now you don't want to over tighten it, alright, but you do want to tighten these down so that it's not really moving, alright. You want it on there pretty good, because what that's going to do is that water block and the processor, okay, it's going to smoosh those together fairly tight, alright, and then your thermal compound that you put down gives it a good solid connection from the processor to your water block or your air cooler, whichever. I've got a ton of air coolers. I just choose not to use them because on a rig like this, when you start to overclock, the moment that you turn on a game, your processor starts to heat up even more, your GPUs start to heat up, and air cooling just doesn't cut it. I'm sorry, it don't. So that's why we do this. And why, you know what, I think I put that on the wrong direction, because I'm not able to get around what I want. Come on. Yep, I put it on there good. That's interesting. That's never happened before. I'm afraid I'm going to pop this. I don't want to pop the CPU out of its socket, but it feels like that's what I'm going to end up doing if I pull on this thing too hard. There we go. Okay, perfect. Yeah, that was a good amount. Alright, so apparently we're going to have to put this on this way, because it doesn't want to play nicely the other way. Are you on there? Oh yeah, you're on there. Alright. Alright, so I had to move this around because these were going to be in the way of our graphics cards, and we don't want that. We want these to be set up nicely. Where are you moving around? Okay, so then this, what I actually end up doing with this one is this is actually going to go on the CPU fan. Alright, now this is one of those times I was telling you guys that it's nice to have a pair of pliers, because what we're going to end up needing to do here is we're going to need to basically plant this bad boy down on top of there. There we go. Alright, because sometimes your fingers are just a little too fat. Well, mine are. I'm not saying anybody has fat fingers, I'm just saying mine are. Alright, so now that we have that in place, what we're going to do is actually, that has to screw in, and I think what I'm going to end up doing, guys, I know this might be a little goofy. No, you're just not going to let me do it, are you? You're just not going to let me do it. Alright, well, if it's not going to let me do it, then it's not going to let me do it. Alright, now, here's something that a lot of people don't know, is on your fan. Okay, now this is a Rocketfish 120mm fan. Alright, for those of you who are unsure which way the air is going to go, okay, usually right next to your power connection here, alright, I know it's kind of hard to see, but right here, okay, where my finger's at, there's arrows, and it shows the direction that the fan spins and the direction of the airflow. Alright, so on this one it's saying that the fans spin this way and that the airflow is that. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to take this like this, alright, and so the fan is spinning this way and the airflow is out. So what we're going to do very carefully is we're going to put this right in here. If I can get that in place. There it is. Alright. And then we're going to get our screws. Come on. There it is. Alright. Now, just get one started so it'll hold it in place. There we go. Alright. So, we'll get the rest of our screws here. Excuse me, sorry, my throat's getting dry. I need to take a drink. Alright. Now you'll notice I didn't keep my drink on the same spot as my things I'm working on here, because I do not want to ruin a brand new board. And for those of you who are wondering, the price of this board was, let's see, I got it picked up through Newegg, and I think it was $224 before tax and shipping and all of that or whatever. So not a bad price, not a bad price. It's actually come down quite a bit. When I first started looking at this board, I think it was somewhere around the neighborhood of about $280, $290, something like that. So honestly, not a bad price at all for what you get. And as far as I'm concerned, with this being an AM3 Plus board and also being part of the Republic of Gamers, excellent price. Just I'm extremely happy to have it. So, all right. So, you guys, excuse my mess over here. All right. So now we actually have our RAM installed. We've got the CPU installed. We have the CPU cooler installed. We have all of our wires pretty much connected. I did that during that small break while the battery was charging up. Alright, so now we've got this one, which this could actually be an optional fan for the CPU. We could put that in underneath the CPU optional fan. which that might not actually be a bad idea, come to think about it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to wrap this around a little bit, and then this is a 4-pin connection, so actually now then I've got that RAM installed and everything. There's no way to do it perfectly. I mean, if you had a case that was big enough to fit all of your fingers and all the stuff that you were working on inside of there, first off, that would be like a very monster case, and that's not gonna work. And second off, man, you just have so much extra room. It'd be awesome, but at the same time, it'd probably be fairly difficult to try and work on because, well, I don't know, maybe it might not be very difficult to work on. I guess it just depends. Let's see if I can get that thing put on there. There we go. Alright, so the only reason I wrap this around that a little bit is just to try and keep things together, because we want to try and make sure that we have enough airflow to move through everything. So the less interference there is with wires and everything else, the better. Alright, that's why SATA connections are awesome, because they're thin, they're not the great big old ribbon cables like they used to be and everything, and that's just ugh. So what we need to do now is the grand finale, more or less. Alright, so we've got our GTX card right here, and let's see if I can do this. I'm not really a fan of these screwless expansion bays, to be honest with you. Not so much of a fan of that. Come on. I know, my great big old fat head's in the way, I'm sorry. I just gotta be able to see what I'm doing over here. Why are you not going into place? It's interesting. Oops. Come on, Manie. Acts like it's stuck. Why are you not going? Now, like I said, you don't really ever want to force anything, but I see what it's catching on, and I don't remember it catching like that before. So, Oh, there we go. Okay. It took a little extra work. Alright. So, hopefully you saw where that just kind of went thunk and in place, alright? And what it is there's those little levers. These right here. Okay, hopefully you can see those little levers, alright? And those, basically you have to push them down, and then once you put the graphics card in, they'll pop up. So, and there's our first one. And these things are so awesome looking. They're just awesome. Now, there's only one thing that I wish that they would have done with the 660s is instead of using a turbine fan like this one, that they would have used the side-by-side fans like they're doing on the 700 series. But that's neither here nor there. Just a little preference is all. Now this one, because of that Supreme FX deal, that's going to make this one a booger to actually do. I'm going to have to make a small adjustment here, I think. Yeah, nobody ever wants to see that. Manie, you broke it! Well, yeah. I guess kind of a did. But sometimes you have to modify your... Come here, you.
Uh-oh. That didn't sound good. Where'd it go? Let's see. Oh, it fell out on the floor. Okay, cool. Alright, so now what we should be able to do is place you in there like that. Now this is what you want to, this is definitely what you want to do. Click. Perfect. Alright. Sweet. Now we'll just lock those in place. Alright. So now we have our two NVIDIA GTX or NVIDIA GeForce GTX 660 Ti's. Two of them. Alright, so now what we need, now your motherboard should come with this. Alright, if it doesn't come with this, you need to verify whether or not your motherboard is actually, whether or not it actually supports SLI or Crossfire. If it doesn't support it, it won't work. Alright, so you need to be very careful. That's the reason why I was specific in buying this board, is because it allows me to run SLI, which is basically just more than one graphics card. Okay, so what you need is this SLI bridge. Now this does say NVIDIA SLI. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're actually going to place this on. Now the board, or the, I can't remember, I don't think it makes any difference on how you place it. I don't think so. That's all BIOS, advanced setup, RAID. There's some place in here for, it's all BIOS, ATX. And see, they got nice pictures and everything, but I don't think it matters. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and place one on that one. And I get you to bend up a little bit. We'll place you on that one. There, perfect. All right. Now, just so that you guys are aware, this is an actual triple SLI certified board. Okay, this is the actual triple SLI bridge, and it actually came with the motherboard. So it's a three-way SLI certified board. You can run 3 graphics cards on this machine. Now, I'm choosing not to do that at the moment because of 2 reasons. One, I'd mentioned earlier that your performance increase really doesn't seem like it's doing all that well, especially for a lot of the new games that are coming out. The second reason is when you go and you drop another graphics card right here in the middle, it lessens your airflow. So right now, you guys can see this, all right? So we've got actually plenty of room from right here, okay, which is where the fan is for this guy. We got plenty airflow here, and we have plenty airflow right here for this one. So they should stay cooler by doing that, because it actually gives them maxed or increased airflow. I don't want to say maxed, but it gives them increased airflow. Now, if there was like a huge performance bonus on having triple SLI, then I'd be all over it, all right? But because I'm not really seeing anything from all the forums I've read, everything from NVIDIA, I just don't think that it's worth it. Plus the fact that we're going to have this great big old monster fan right here on the side blowing right into these guys. Okay, so it's going to be blowing into them. It's going to be blowing on for our RAM. This top side is going to exhaust. It's going to come out the back side. It's going to be good. All right, so now what we need to do is, a lot of times what will end up happening is with your graphics cards, oh, they're in here. Oops. What'll happen with your graphics cards is you'll get an extra little box, and what that has inside of it is extra connectors and stuff like that. Okay, now they send you these, all right, and this is a 4-pin Molex connector. It's 2 of them to a 6-pin
a 6-pin PCIe connector. All right. Everywhere that I've ever looked, anybody that I've ever talked to says don't use them. All right. The reason that you don't want to use them is because if you're having to use Molex connectors to power that, it's quite possible that your power supply is not SLI certified, which mine doesn't say that it's SLI certified, but it does come with all of the connectors to run SLI on its own without having to hook up the Molex connectors. Okay, those are those ones I showed you earlier. So what we're going to do is straight off the bat, we're going to go ahead and hook up our top one. So we're going to put him in there like that. We're going to take this one, put him in there like that, and then what I will do here in just a minute is I actually have quite a few black zip ties. What I'm going to do is I'm going to zip those to a spot so that that cable stays out of the way, maximizes our airflow. All right. So let's get this other one put together. So we have this one right there. This one. Oops, come on now. This one right there. All right, perfect. So what we're going to do is, I think, I want to get these kind of bent out of the way. And the reason being mostly because I've got that fan that's going to be sitting right here. I don't want those to be getting hit or beat up on by the fan. So what I'm going to do is we're going to push these down kind of out of the way over here. Alright, so I think what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to take the rig, and I know that you guys can't see this, and I'm sorry, I apologize, but just give me a quick second here. What I'm going to try and do is try and get these all looped out of the way so that they're not impeding on that power supply connection. And what we're going to do is I'm just going to steal a little spot right here and come around back through this side if possible. Yeah, perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to zip these guys down into place, and I'm just going to try and keep them kind of as low as possible. And that way you guys can see this. Alright, so now we have our wires are all connected, and they're actually pretty low profiled. They're really low, so our fan's going to sit right here. The fan's not going to hit them. Okay, that's what we were looking for. So far, we are looking at the sign of a great looking machine. I mean, guys, come on. 2 great big old NVIDIA graphics cards, an AMD 3 Plus processor, water cooling, 850 watt power supply, 1 terabyte hard drive. We got it good. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to nip this off here in the back. Maybe. There we go. Alright, we're going to put our back panel on right quick. Make sure that all of our wires from the back side will be hidden. Alright, perfect. So we're nice and flush along that. Let's grab our screws here. We'll put those in. Now guys, I like to just put mine in finger tight. I don't like to screw them down totally and completely hard with a screwdriver, because that just doesn't really ever seem to benefit me, because I know that at some point I'm going to have to open up a side panel. So, alright guys, so far it looks like everything is doing really good. Now, the last part of this, we want to make sure that everything's pretty much out of the way, which it looks like it is. We've got plenty of airflow for that one. We've got plenty of airflow for this one. This is coming in. That's doing its thing. Now, the nice part about this... Oh, man. Oh, no, it's right there. Can I get to it, though?
Actually, no, that's the wrong kind of connector. Oh, I put that backside on too soon. Shoot. Alright. Because we definitely need to have this guy powered. Alright. And, boy, that motherboard's heavy. I can tell the weight difference already. Alright, so what we gotta do is we're gonna have to take this back panel off here for just a second. Alright. Now, let's see. Actually what I'm gonna do here real quick, I'm actually gonna feed this through to a certain spot, because that's where I had it feeding through last time. And can you get there, Manie? Yep. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to temporarily put this side panel on. And this is, like I said, it's kind of temporary. Not going to be permanently there. I might have to take it back off in a second anyway. I just want to put it on there so that way I can get over here to this, because I need a connection. Right like that. Okay, perfect. So we got that connected. Get this back panel put on. Just like that. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, guys, this is happening. This is definitely happening. Alright, so that's pretty much about it, guys. What I'm going to end up doing is I will put this back up underneath the bench, and there it is, guys, right there. Alright, so oops. Our fan wire gets hidden down in there. I'm going to close this up just like this. Right like that. Doesn't look like any of our wires are going to hit. Nope, we got plenty of clearance, I think. So, really about the only way to test this guy out is to power him on. But I guess you'll have to wait until we start playing some more games. So, guys, I hope you enjoyed. Let's see if we can get this sweat changed just a little bit. I hope that you enjoyed this. I really do. It was fun for me. It's the first time I've really actually been able to do anything like this. The benefit for me is that hopefully that there was someone out there that learned something. If you learned something, bonus. Alright, beast mode for sure. You know, if you like what you saw today, definitely reach down there, hit that like button for me. Thank you so very much for watching. It's been a ton of fun for me. It was great for me to be able to take down my old machine, put some new parts into it. We're going to get it back up and running, and we'll see you in the next version of BigNLittleMinecraft. So again, thanks guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope that you learned something, and hopefully you'll have a reference point if you decide to do it on your own. So until next time, guys, we'll see you later. Bye.